Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Good evening. Welcome to the Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Lindsey Davis Stover. We have a very special guest with us this evening, Delegate Kathleen Murphy, who represents the 34th District. Kathleen, thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, we have had so much happen in November. It was huge for Democrats.
The big surprise.
Yes. Can you quickly just give us a post-election kind of overview and what it means for Democrats?
Well, it means all good things for Democrats, but we went up to 55 Democrats out of 100, which gives us the majority, and It gives us the speaker. And so for the first time in 400 years, we're going to have a woman speaker of the House of Delegates. And
incredible.
It's just going to be remarkable. But we also have, for the first time, an African-American woman who will be the majority leader, which is so exciting.
Amazing.
Yeah, I am just thrilled. But we also have now 30 women. 6 of them are Republicans, but we have 30 women in the House of Delegates, which is a remarkable achievement as well.
That is. And we've seen so many women running since 2016, really. And they're running and they're winning at all levels here in Virginia. Can you speak a little bit to that and why you think more women are running and ultimately getting elected?
I think women realize that we can do a better job than the men, and we're tired of our voices not being heard. So we cured it. We're running and we're succeeding, and so that makes it all the better.
It's fantastic.
I am. I'm really excited about it.
Oh, that's great. Well, in 400 years since we've had a woman speaker.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just
Well, in
amazing.
400 years, we've never had a woman speaker. Mm-hmm. But the House of Burgess started with Jamestown, and it sounds a little strange. How could we have had a 400
right.
year? But it started with the House of Burgess, and so 400 years of the House of Burgess, this is the first woman. And I talked to Eileen Fillercorn the other day, and I said, I want you to look around on the walls inside the Capitol and tell me, where are they going to hang your portrait?
Oh.
And I think it surprised her, but it's true. Her portrait will hang on the wall in the House of Delegates.
And we'll finally have a woman.
Yes.
That's incredible.
It is.
Incredible. Well, you have been such a leader in helping so many Democrats get elected since 2016.
I've sure tried.
And you have mentored so many women. Tell me what that means to you personally and why that's important to you.
Well, it's a funny story, but I got to be friends with Kirsten Gillibrand, Senator Gillibrand, when she was doing Off the Sidelines. And I would go to her events and listen to her talk about women getting off the sidelines. And so I told her it was all her fault when I stood there one day and decided that I would run. And I decided to run against Barbara Comstock because she was the delegate at the time, and she had voted for mandatory transvaginal ultrasound. She voted against the budget that funded our schools, that funded our roads, and that funded, really important projects around the Commonwealth. And it just infuriated me. So I decided I would run, and I almost beat her.
That's great.
No, it would have been better had I won. But
That's true. That's
yes.
true.
But it also made me know that I could.
Right.
And so I was determined that I would keep running. And then she ran for Congress, and then I took the seat. So I've been there 5 years now.
That's great. And you have been such a mentor to so many women. Talk a little bit about that. I mean, talk about the lessons that you've learned and why it's important to you to pass those on.
Well, I think that it's important that women need to understand that it's okay to speak up, to speak out, and to be in control. It doesn't always have to be that you stand back and let the guy in the room be the big shot. I don't think women come by it naturally. I think that, well, I know that many do, but I think it's the mother in us, it's the nurturer in us that goes, here, let me help you do this. Well, now we need to help ourselves. And I think we're learning it, and I think we've done a great job of doing it. When you look at what's happened in Congress, we have the most dynamic, wonderful women representing us in the U.S. Congress. I'm just delighted.
It's incredible. I love that now we need to help ourselves.
And we have to.
We do. We absolutely do. Well, tell us a little bit about the 34th District. I am fortunate because you are
Yes, I am.
my delegate. But tell our viewers what the 34th District encompasses, what areas?
The 34th District runs from the Arlington McLean line
Yes.
straight out the river, and it ends with the Trump Golf Course. And boy, I hear an awful lot about how often he goes out there to play golf because it disrupts their lives.
Oh, I'm sure.
But it also has Wolf Trap, parts of West Briar, a little piece of Vienna. So it goes into Loudoun with 7 precincts. So it's a good district. We've got great people.
Yeah.
They're very involved. We've got some really, really wonderful involved constituents.
That's great. And I mean, just a little bit more on that. What is your favorite part of the district? What do you love about your district?
That's a terrible thing to ask.
I mean, is it the people? Is it?
Of
what do
course,
you
it's
love?
the people. We have women who have created this women's forum that they hold every year. Some of those women live in my district, and they just are ready to set the world on fire. They are wonderful.
That's awesome.
And I have a special friend, Barb Jones, out in Loudoun, and every time I've ever needed someone to help me with something, she has been there. She has just been remarkable. So much like you have stepped up and helped us when we've needed help in the McLean area. It's been a really good sisterhood, of very, very involved and very capable women.
That's exciting too, just to have so much involvement among your constituents. That's
it is.
really great.
It is. It's wonderful.
Well, tell us about the upcoming session for our viewers that maybe don't follow it as closely. When does it start and how long does it last?
It starts the first, let's see, I think it's the 8th of January, and it ends about the 7th or 8th of March.
Okay.
And so we're there 5 days a week, and many of us come home on weekends. For me, it's a 2-hour drive down, and so I'm hoping not to be put on a committee that starts at 7:30 in the morning. Because it's terrible to have to get up at 5:30 and be on the road to
on
to
95
get to,
that early.
Really, that's not good. But it's fun because you get to watch the sunrise.
Oh, that's great.
But it's going to be a dynamic change because we will take over in the role of heads of the committees, and we'll take over the majority on each of the committees. And I'm especially excited to see the good we can do on the gun violence prevention measures that we keep offering, and they keep being defeated.
Right, right.
So far they were defeated, but
Absolutely.
things will change.
Good, good. So what does that mean that Democrats will now be running the committees? How does that change things from the past? Tell our viewers a little bit more of an insight on that piece.
Well, it's the Republicans, when they were in charge, could decide what bill would be heard. So if you submitted a bill and they decided they really didn't want to talk about it, they never assigned it to a committee.
Wow.
If they did assign it to a committee, everything operates by motion. So the motion has to be that they move to hear the bill, that they move to pass the bill, that they move to table the bill, which means they're going to kill it.
Right.
Well, I've had more bills tabled than I would ever like to have happen. And almost, I think every single gun safety bill that we ever submitted was tabled or not heard at all.
Wow. So now the Democrats are going to be leading the committees. So many of the bills that have been tabled in the past and never saw the light of day could possibly now come
Be heard,
up for
argued,
That's amazing.
discussed, and even passed.
That's fantastic.
It will be good.
That is great. Now, tell us a little bit, and the future segments want to go into more in detail some of your just accomplishments around gun violence prevention and women veterans, but just in general, what are your accomplishments? I mean, you have so many since you have served the 34th District. What are a few of them that you're most proud of?
Well, you know, I'm proud of a whole lot of things, but I was really proud of starting the Gun Violence Prevention Caucus, helping to run the Safe Virginia initiative, which was an initiative that went across the Commonwealth, talking to police, students, medical professionals, parents, about gun violence and the impact it was having on our communities and our children, and in our schools.
Wow.
So I helped do that. I've been a leader in that arena. You know, my brother was murdered. And so for me, it's personal. It's impersonal that no one else should have to get that phone call. And when I first went into the House of Delegates, when I offered my first bill to take guns out of the hands of repeat violent domestic abusers, and they refused to hear the bill.
Wow.
They wouldn't let me present the bill. And so I decided then that I had to figure out a way to get them to listen. And people ask me often why I go over to the other side to talk to Republicans so often, and I said, because I need them to hear me.
Yeah.
And it worked.
That's fantastic.
Sort of. Just sort of.
Yes, absolutely. Now, as you all prepare to go into session in, I guess, just a few weeks now, what are some of the things that you're doing in preparation to that? Are you meeting with different constituent groups to hear some of their concerns? How do you spend your day in preparing for session?
Well, my days are endless. The thing of it is that you never stop meeting with constituents. And right now, I've got several gun bills, but I have to work with the police and with others to make sure that I don't step over the mark. I want to help. I don't want to become a part of the problem.
Right.
And I've got some bills, always something where I'm looking to see how we can help with class sizes in our schools, transportation. I'm the new vice chair of the Transportation Committee in the House, which is going to be very exciting. But I've been on the Transportation Committee for several years, and I also serve on the General Laws Committee, which handles just about everything you can imagine. But in the transportation arena, you know, we have had really the problem in our district is 193, is Georgetown Pike.
Right. Right.
And so we have had to really deal with the issues and try and come up with ways to make it better for the people who live in your neighborhoods.
Yes, absolutely. And we're going to have to go to a short break, but when we get back, I would love to talk more about your committee assignments. Also, I want to dig more into the legislation. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Nice going, Spencer! I can't believe we broke Old Man Hennessy's window.
Correction, dude. You broke. I just threw the ball.
This is really bad. What are we gonna do?
We?
Go to the door, ask for the ball back. Are you serious?
It's my ball, Myrtleback.
You're so dead. I'd run away.
Yeah, to Uruguay.
Kiss your life goodbye. Sorry.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Remember me and your well.
Nice one. Some friends you are.
Keep smiling, keep shining.
Hi. Tell him it was an accident. And we can fix the window. Come on. I'll come with you.
Loyalty. Pass it on.
You go first.
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
One day these rats were playing in the woods. Well, it's a matches and that's no good. Listen to smoke before you give it a try. Only you. Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about ripped off life. Nothing very nice on a homeless mind. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches. Don't play with fire.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire.
Awkward. I'm the awkward silence. You try to avoid me, then there I am again.
But an awkward silence can be a great thing.
Like Kelly here is about to demonstrate.
You haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Lindsey Davis Stover, and we're continuing our conversation with Delegate Kathleen Murphy. And Kathleen, when we were ending the first segment, we were starting to talk about some of the committees that you've served on in the past. Tell us a little bit more about that and what that looks like going into the next session.
The way committee assignments work is it's all up to the speaker. And so the speaker now has 55 people she has to put on committees. And so she's going to consider, the committees we've been on, but she's also going to look at some regional issues and see who can have the most impact and make the biggest difference. I'm going to be the vice chair of the Transportation Committee because my district is nothing but transportation.
And traffic.
And traffic and schools.
Traffic.
Schools.
Yes.
And so I really won't know until January just what committees I'm going to be on. But I've served on general laws, county, cities, and towns, finance, P&E, privileges and elections. And so we're looking forward to seeing how it's all going to fit together.
That's great.
And we're looking forward to a good crew of people on privileges and elections to get us started on redistricting. So those are our goals.
That's great. That's great. And we talked a little bit about this previously, but I know it's something that you're incredibly passionate about. Can you tell us a little bit more about the legislation you were able to pass in gun violence prevention? And tell us how you did that, because when you did that at a time that those types of laws weren't getting passed in Virginia, is that right?
The deal came about because Terry McAuliffe had put a restriction on concealed carry, reciprocity. And it was something really important to the Republicans, and so Terry was very good and he knew it, and so he made a deal and they agreed that we could pass a bill. And I think that the Republicans played a role in allowing my bill to be the one that they took, because I think they felt kind of guilty about how they had treated me, because I gave a floor speech and I said, I'm really tired of hearing from you that if my brother had had a gun, he'd be alive today. Well, he had a gun, he was former military, he knew how to use it, but when people walk in to your place of business with the gun loaded and pointed at you, you don't have time to do anything else. And so he was dead, and I told them that I didn't ever want to hear it from them again. And a few of them actually came over and apologized. But that kind of set the stage for me being able to approach them on the issue without them thinking I was just some housewife who didn't have anything else to do except run for office.
Right.
And so it made a difference. And so when it was time to assign the bill to allow someone to patron that bill, they chose me. And that's how it got passed.
That's incredible. And you talked a little bit about the importance of bipartisanship.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about that and why that is so important, even when you're in the majority, to ensure that you're able to continue to have those conversations.
Well, you're not enemies. You just come from different places.
Right.
And you have to be able to sit down and say, okay, this is where I want to go. If I do it this way, of course, now that we're in the majority, we won't have to ask these questions.
Right.
But we'll want their 2 cents.
Sure.
But if I do it this way, will that be a way that you'll be able to accept? And then they would say to me, well, how about you make this change? And so that really was how I approached bills that I desperately wanted to pass. I worked on getting funding for a women veterans coordinator for 3 years. Until, it's a funny story actually, but I walked every day after session, I walked over to Chris Jones, who was head of appropriations, and I said, I want funding for a women veterans coordinator. I did it every single day after session until when he would see me coming, he would put his hands in the air and say, I hear you, okay, okay, okay. So that was 2 months worth of walking across the, the General Assembly floor and walking up to Chris and saying, I want funding for a women veterans coordinator, and it worked.
Right. And in doing that, he saw, I'm sure, one, how important it was to you, but two, that you were making the effort to connect on that issue.
Well, we connected. He's a very fine and decent man. He lost this year. So I'm sorry to lose a friend, but I'm glad to pick up a Democrat.
That's right. That's right. Well, we have talked a little bit about your work on women veterans, and it's something that I know both you and I share a passion for. Talk a little bit about getting that funding for a women veterans coordinator and what that actually means for women veterans here in Virginia.
Well, first I think I'd like to just explain that I got on the Board of Veteran Services. I grew up a military brat. So for me, military is kind of in my veins, you know? And when the speaker said to me, which committee do you want to be on? I said, I want to be on the Board of Veteran Services. And when I went on the board, it was amazing to sit in the meeting and not have one program designed for women. You know, they were an aside. And I started asking questions, and then they said, well, why don't you take over the Women Veterans Committee that we've never had before?
Right.
And take a look at what programs are out there and what we can be doing better. And so I did that. I spent about 6 months looking at programs around the whole U.S. Texas has some great programs, by the way.
They do.
And so we did that, and then we put together a proposal for funding for a women veterans coordinator, because there are 104,000 women veterans in Virginia, and there was not one woman veterans coordinator.
Wow.
Well, there is now.
That's great.
And this year I'll be putting a request for funding in for a second helper for her, because you can't do that alone.
No. So we have 104,000
That's right.
women veterans in Virginia. That's incredible.
Yep. It's shocking that we have a large number of women veterans who live in their cars with their children. It's shocking. And so it's really important to me. And then one of the next thing I did was I decided that they needed to be heard more. So I put together a series of women veteran roundtables across the Commonwealth. We've had 10. And so we will continue to do them when session is over. I can't balance it when we're in session. But we've had them in a lot of different places, and we've really got some good feedback, and we're getting more and more support from other organizations that are standing up and saying we want to help, but jobs, help with education, help with solving the problems of how they didn't sign up right as they ran for the door.
That's right.
Very, very large number of them have been sexually molested when they were in the military. And they just headed for the door. They didn't care if the papers were filled out right. And I don't really know how to solve that problem, because that's more federal. But it's something I'm working on.
Good. And now that women veterans in the Commonwealth have a point person, a coordinator.
They've got a voice.
That's incredible. It really is. And talk a little bit, as you've gone around the Commonwealth and you've put together these listening sessions and roundtables with women veterans, what are you hearing? What are the struggles? What are the challenges among the groups of women veterans here in the Commonwealth?
The part that seems the most difficult is handling their children and getting a job and making that transition when, you know, they don't have anything lined up for when they get out. It's a money factor always. That's really what it is.
It is.
And you have to have enough money saved to restart, and that isn't always easy.
Right. Well, thank you.
So community colleges too, we've worked with community colleges to start programs to get our veterans in and start getting them college credits for what they've learned and get them on a pathway. They call it at the community college, pathway to making progress and getting themselves in, you know, a 4-year degree even, and on the road to a different kind of job.
That's incredible. I mean, women veterans are the fastest growing veteran population
They are.
nationwide. And so thank you for your work
Well,
and putting together.
I'm glad I've been
a
able to
coordinator.
help. It gives me this wonderful sense of purpose. It really
That's
does.
great. And to know that you come from such a service background, I mean, not just your federal service and your state
Well,
service.
I did handle defense appropriations
Yes,
for Charlie Wilson.
You did.
So I've got the military in my blood.
Yes, but you also come from a family of
Yes,
service.
I do.
And you can tell in the passion that you put into that, so thank
Well,
you.
they needed a voice. They needed a voice, and I decided to be that voice.
That's great. That's great. Now tell us a little bit about what you have planned coming up for the next session. What issues do you really want to dig in on and focus on? What issues do you want to champion? And what do you see this next session really looking like?
I think it's really going to look different because so many of the things that we have fought for so hard, voting rights, protection for voting rights is really big. Funding for schools, especially in Northern Virginia. Obviously transportation.
Right.
But the thing that you know has been taboo all these years is anything that touched gun violence prevention. And now is our time. Now is our turn to say people need background checks. When it's not going to a family member, they need a background check.
Right.
We're trying to figure it out, and we're trying to do it in a way that is respectful and that makes sense and that doesn't, you know, scare off our opponents.
Sure.
I don't think that there's anything we can do that would make them feel comfortable with any legislation. But there are things that need to be done.
So on the gun violence prevention, do Democrats have the votes to get some meaningful legislation passed?
Remember, we've got 55.
Yes.
We sure do.
So we should expect to see some
You will.
meaningful legislation come out of this session in regards to
Some
gun violence
thoughtful
prevention.
legislation. Thoughtful. One of the bills that I've put in several times is a bill to take guns out of the hands of repeat violent domestic abusers.
Yes.
Now, why should that be hard?
Right. Right.
It shouldn't.
No.
And yet the bill dies. And it frustrates me beyond belief, but this is our year to pass it.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about that when we come back from the break. Again, we're here with Delegate Kathleen Murphy. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Your time is gonna come. Your time is gonna come. It's up to you to reach out to be that friend who comes along. Your day is gonna come.
When you make a friend, you make a difference.
Your day is gonna come.
Friendship. Pass it on. A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
Good one, son.
Last summer, my new dad took me on vacation. First, we went deep sea fishing.
Wow! I'm so proud of you, son.
And then we went on Thunder Shark. That was awesome! Let's go again. 3 times. I gotta say, it was pretty cool.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of kids in foster care will take you just as you are.
What's it feel like when a woman's having a heart attack? Chest pain, like there's a ton of weight on your chest. Severe shortness of breath. Unexplained nausea. Cold sweats. There's an unusual tiredness and fatigue. There's unfamiliar dizziness or lightheadedness. Unusual pain in your back, neck, jaw, one or both arms, even your upper stomach are signs you're having a heart attack. Don't make excuses. Make the call to 911 immediately. Learn more at womenshealth.gov/heartattack.
Operation Wonder Park is a go!
There's nothing more powerful than imagination.
Honey, have you seen my cell phone?
But don't just imagine.
My park came to life?
Ooh, a plot twist.
Use STEM to build, create.
She did it.
And change the world.
Who's with me?
I'm more of a 2 feet on the ground kind of guy.
It's gonna hurt tomorrow.
If she can STEM, so can you. Find out more at She Can STEM.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Lindsey Davis Stover. And we're continuing our conversation this evening with Delegate Kathleen Murphy, who represents the 34th District. And as we went to break, we were talking about the gun violence prevention bills that we could see actually, one, get a hearing in the committee, and two, get passed. Tell us a little bit. Do you think that we'll be able to get universal background checks passed? What types of bills do you think we'll be able to get passed on this important issue?
I think that we have a good crew of people who are going to go on the Militia and Police Committee, which I think is a funny name for the Gun Violence Prevention Committee. Myself, I'd like to see that change. But they're thoughtful, a lot of lawyers, and so they'll approach it in an appropriate way, keeping people's rights to bear arms in mind. But there will be a background check bill. There absolutely will be. And I'm looking forward to it. And I'm planning on my bill to keep guns out of the hands of repeat violent domestic abusers getting passed.
It's amazing that hasn't been passed already. I mean, all of these bills we've talked about on this particular issue, it is amazing that they have not.
I always thought it was really strange that they wanted to arm the woman as well. And I asked, well, so what do you want to have happen here? They have a shootout over the heads of the kids' duck children?
Wow.
It never made sense to me.
There's no logic behind that at all.
No, why couldn't we just take the gun out of the house and then we wouldn't have people shooting at each other? But that didn't win, but I'm looking forward to it winning in this go-round.
Oh, good. I mean, this particular issue, too, I mean, has such a wide span of support. I mean, you have school-age children who want to see something done because they, in many ways, are afraid to go to school. And some of the...
Well, you must hear that from your girls. You must hear that.
I do. I have to say, when I hear about the drills that they participate in, which I know they participate in for their own safety, at the same time, it is heartbreaking to hear how we are really stripping the innocence of our children so early, early. Because, you know, it is an issue that unfortunately is on the top of mind for a lot of children. I know when I was growing up, the big thing was the tornado drills, right?
Yeah.
And getting underneath your desk or in a doorway for tornadoes. And the idea that my own children are now having to do an active shooter drill is just...
It's heartbreaking.
It is so heartbreaking. It really is.
But the fact is that you always have to worry about that possibility.
You do.
Is even more heartbreaking. It really is. And we've got to come together on this issue. We've got to come together, and we've got to put the safety of our children and our communities over, people being able to go in and buy a trunk full of guns and then drive around and sell them, in D.C. and in New York and in Philadelphia.
Right.
It's terrible.
Well, it's exciting, though, that we are, as Virginians, are going to see something.
You're going to see some changes.
Get done on this issue. I know that families across the Commonwealth will be welcoming to those changes.
Well, so will I.
Well, tell us about the first bill that the Democrats are going to introduce. When they gavel session and things start moving, what is going to be that first bill the Democrats put forward?
The very first bill filed was the ERA. And we are going to see the ERA passed. And it's gonna start the whole, it will have a reaction in Congress, and then they'll have to revisit whether the Supreme Court is gonna have to rule on it. It's gonna be a really interesting chain reaction that's gonna go across, but we will be the state that when we pass this would technically mean the passage of the ERA.
Right.
For women across this country.
Right. It just gives me goosebumps.
Well, I mean, come on. Really?
I know, it's amazing it's taken us this long, right?
I remember Phyllis Schlafly and her saying, you know, oh my God, women would have to go to combat. Women might have to work for a living. And you wonder, you know, I know she's deceased, but you wonder what she'd be thinking right now.
Right.
She'd come up with a new thing to complain about, I'm pretty sure.
Well, tell us a little bit about the ERA. I mean, it's been proposed, at least, right? Every session almost. And
oh, it has. Last year, Jennifer Carroll Foy and Hala Ayala were the two. They were astounding in their passionate presentation of this bill, and it really rocked. You know, it rocked the caucus, and it rocked the General Assembly. Their energy was just astounding, and they weren't going to be silenced. We tried to pass it in county, cities, and towns, and it got shut down. We tried to pass it everywhere. I'm only surprised we didn't try and pass it in, you know, the Militia and Police Committee. I mean, surely we could have found some connection.
Yes.
But no, it was the first bill filed. So it means it's going to be voted on this year for sure.
And what a historic time to have the ERA passed in the year that we have the first woman speaker.
Yes.
Here in Virginia.
That should give you goosebumps.
That's incredible.
Yes.
Right?
It really is. It's very telling that change has come. And it's good change.
And long overdue.
Long overdue. long overdue.
Do you anticipate much of an opposition to the ERA when it's put forward?
Sure. Well, I don't know how much, but I mean, the Republicans have traditionally opposed it, claiming that it, you know, because back in the days of Phyllis Schlafly, it was going to mean all of these horrible things. They do tie it to abortion now.
Oh, interesting.
And I find that to be weird, but they do. And I just don't understand. And then some will say it's not necessary, that women already have equal rights.
Right.
But we aren't protected under the Constitution.
No, we're not.
We are not. And these guys are lawyers. These people are smart people. They know that.
I mean, do you anticipate, and I know this is just guessing, but I mean, do you anticipate some Republicans voting in favor of the ERA?
Well, last session, I think we had two. I think they both lost. Well, one of them did anyway, Yancey. I think he had voted for it because he knew that he needed to vote for it.
Right.
But he did lose to Shelley Simons. It was a hard-fought race, and I'm really glad. She's a very good friend. Went through Emerge with us.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So most likely it will be more of a party line vote.
Yeah, I think it will. We might get one or two votes. But there are women on the Republican side who really do tie it to abortion, and I think that's unfortunate. It's not an abortion bill. It's for equal rights.
Right.
It's for women being recognized as equal citizens under the law.
And being protected.
Yes.
Absolutely, being protected. Well, I hope...
Having our rights protected.
Yes. I hope on that one in particular, and I'm sure there will be others to take a victory lap on, but...
well, that one we can all take a victory.
I tell you, that's going to be historic.
I mean, so I was young, but I sat in the gallery above the floor of the House of Representatives the night that bill was passed, and I cried. I was so excited that it had passed, and then I didn't understand that there were a few more steps it had to go through.
Right.
But I was there.
And we'll be there as a country, and it will definitely trigger what it needs to trigger at the federal level.
I think so.
To push through. So I think it's an exciting time, and we've seen kind of the year of the woman, right, become 2 and 3 years post 2016, and that's exciting because I think all of that energy and movement has led us to this point.
Oh, we won't go backwards.
No.
We've come
can't.
way too far to turn around.
Mm-hmm. And I think, too, one of the things that I'm excited to see is the younger generation of girls who I look at and know we will never go back, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they are fierce and they have some
Well,
really incredible examples.
They see things as challenges they can achieve, challenges that they can overcome, challenges that need to be met. We saw challenges and we saw roadblocks.
Right.
Me more than you. And it's really interesting. I can think back to, maybe, the first time we saw a woman who became the Attorney General, the first time we still haven't seen a woman as Vice President or President.
That's right.
And
That's
how
right.
many years has it been? How old is this country?
I know.
Think about that. And in all these other nations, I mean, in some of the most backward countries around, women are presidents, and yet here, we haven't been able to do that.
Right.
And I love the way Trump says that he won by such a big majority. He lost by 5 million votes.
Yes, he did.
I don't get that. He won because of the Electoral College, and that's something that people are talking about. But I don't see that as something that we will certainly get anywhere.
Well, I think it's interesting, though. I mean, we're seeing these young girls step up in ways, right? Whether it's on climate, whether it's on gun violence prevention. I mean, some of the young women that have stepped up in this space and are carrying the torch are in high school. You know, and it is amazing to see. But it gives me such hope for the future to see these fearless young women.
Well, I think when you saw after Parkland, and you saw the young people who said, look at what we've been through, and we're not stepping aside.
Right.
We're not standing down. We will be heard. And that has continued. And a lot of those are young women. I mean, there's several young guys, too, that are just remarkable. But these issues, they are taking on. And they are not standing back and saying, well, I think I'll wait until it's my turn.
Right.
It's their turn.
It is their turn. And they're doing a heck of a job.
Oh, it's so impressive.
It really
It's so impressive.
really is. I have a cousin who was in the Santa Fe high school shooting, Bree Butler, and she has become an activist. And I'm just in awe of what she does and how she does it. The courage and the bravery. It's
breathtaking,
just
isn't it?
inspiring.
So
It's
look
inspiring.
at what we've done is we've planted the seeds and now they're growing.
That's incredible. Well, please stay with us. Again, we're speaking with Delegate Kathleen Murphy, and we're going to take a short break, but please stay with us. We'll be right back.
We are neighbors and best friends.
I love my sister.
My heart doesn't see race. Love is love.
Our family is no less than any other family.
Open road, here comes the Heffley family.
Whether it's a short trip or a long haul,
Estimated time, 47 hours.
they will beg,
You're hungry? I'm happy to provide.
they will plead.
Deep fried butter on a stick.
But whatever you do, don't wimp out.
Now you're talking.
Make them buckle up.
He can't hurt.
Remember, safety first. Cheese curls second.
Are you orange?
Eva Marie smoked 12,000 packs of cigarettes over 15 years. She quit and And now there's a new lung cancer screening that could save her life. You stopped smoking. Now start screening. No matter how much you smoked, early detection could save you. Talk to your doctor or learn more at savedbythescan.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Lindsey Davis Stover, and we've been having a fascinating conversation with Delegate Kathleen Murphy, who represents the 34th District. And we have covered many different issues and kind of what we can expect to see in this session. But I wanted to ask you, what are some of your personal goals as you go into this session in January?
My personal goals, first of all, will be to get a bill passed that takes guns out of the hands of repeat violent domestic abusers. That's one good goal. And then, of course, to get funding for a second person to help on the women veterans issues.
That's great.
But we also have to look at redistricting and making sure that when we approach it, we do it right, we do it fair, and we make sure that the districts that are created are going to be districts that are cohesive. My district is an odd duck in a way because it runs from the McLean-Arlington line all the way out into Loudoun County, but it also has a piece of Vienna, it has a piece of Wolf Trap, it has a lot of little pieces, and yet McLean itself is sliced right in half.
Right.
Because when it was redistricted last, there were too many Democrats in that area for Comstock. She wanted to get rid of some of them, and she did. But I don't think an area like that should be divided. I want to put McLean back together and make sure that the people there are represented by one person. So it's going to be interesting. We're going to have to work really hard to make sure it's done in a fair and appropriate way.
Right.
And that we keep in mind that it shouldn't be as partisan as it has been in the past.
Right, right. And I think that's an important note. I mean, whether it's McLean or another area, putting those communities of interest together is so important for those constituents because they're concerned many times about the same challenges around education or transportation, especially in the McLean area. And so keeping those communities of interest so that they can really have a powerful voice on their own challenges is going to be really important.
Well, it's just helpful because then you're all talking together about the same issue. Right. It isn't that they have to run over and talk to Rip Sullivan and then this crew comes back and looks for me. I have to say that the Loudoun part of my district has been a wonderful experience because there's so many wonderful people who live in Loudoun.
There are.
And they're activists, and that has really, really energized voters. And that has been great. So it's going to be hard for me to figure out how I keep the people I love all together and yet put McLean back together. I have to figure this out.
Sure.
It's going to be interesting.
Well, and I think it's going to be a challenge probably throughout the Commonwealth.
It will be.
How many years do we go by until we take up redistricting again? So every 10 years.
With the census.
With the census.
So every 10 years.
It's amazing whether it's all of the issues we've discussed, gun violence prevention, education, transportation, redistricting. You are going to pack a lot in to a relatively short amount of time. You had said earlier from January till about March. A session, right?
Yeah. It could sneak out a little longer, but
sure.
And if it needs a special session, we tried that, with the gun violence thing, and of course the Republicans had us all come, but within, I think, about 45 minutes it was all over, and I wasn't sure why I had gone to all the trouble of driving all the way down to sit there and have nothing happen.
Yes.
No, we're going to make things happen. We will. It's going to be thoughtful. It's going to be organized. We're going to take our time. Except on the ERA, I'm pretty sure that women have waited long enough.
We have waited long enough, that's right.
But we are, and I think voices will be heard, no doors will be closed, and we're going to move forward in a positive and productive way. That's what we're going to do.
That's fantastic.
And I am looking forward to it.
Oh, good. Well, if you are going to do all of these issues in a short amount of time, tell the viewers a little bit about what your day looks like in Richmond. It sounds like it's an 18 to 20 hour plus day, right?
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting question. Generally, yeah, I start out around 7:30 in the morning, and you have committee meetings because we go into session at noon. So your committee meetings are first before session, and then after session you can have another committee meeting, but then you have subcommittee meetings. And that can go on until 5, 6 o'clock.
Wow.
And then, then you've got to go and read what you need to read for the next session, and you've got to make sure that if you're presenting a bill, when you present a bill, you have to have the people who have been working with you to carry the bill there to stand beside you to help answer questions if there are some. It's a very inclusive process, actually. I appreciate that a lot.
That's great.
It is.
That's great. Now, one of the things I did want to make sure we touched on this evening was how constituents and people in the Commonwealth get involved in this process, in this legislative process. Can you talk a little bit, if someone is very passionate about an issue, what can they do to connect with their delegate or state senator while they're in Richmond?
Well, it has to happen before Richmond, unless you just want to come and talk about a bill. But most of our bills had to be filed first draft by about the 5th of December. And so now you have time to redraft them and make changes. And we could have as many bills as we wanted this year, but now we can only have 5 more. And so I put in about 23 bills, and they're all being drafted. And then I'll look at them and make changes, and some of them we'll decide not to go forward with because 6 other people will be doing the same thing.
Sure.
Background checks on guns. But then you have to have 5. And then generally when I present the bill, you stand in front of your own, mates in the General Assembly, and you present the bill to the committee and tell them why it's important. And you say, I have Lindsey here who would like to speak on this bill. And then they'll ask if there are other people who want to speak for it or against it. And then they vote. And if they vote it out of the full committee, then it goes to the floor. But it goes subcommittee, full committee, and then to the floor.
And are the subcommittee, full committee, and obviously the floor, are they all open to the public to watch?
Almost every bill.
Okay. So the public can really participate and see up close how whatever bill they're tracking is progressing.
Yeah, and they're always welcome to come into my office anytime if they want to tell me, or if they want to say, this is very important to me, I would like to speak on this bill, then we would talk about what they might like to say. There is a limit to, you can't have 100 people speak out, because you'd be there until you were very old. But the bill goes through a process, and people are very. It's the people's, House of Delegates. It's not it's not as hard as the U.S. Congress. I'll tell you that.
Well, and we talked a little bit on the break about lobby days. Can you explain to our viewers what a lobby day is down in Richmond, and maybe how they can participate?
Well, almost any day could be a lobby day, but a lobby day is when, say, you want to come down and you want to talk to us about gun violence prevention. Well, unfortunately, that's always been Martin Luther King's birthday, that the NRA sets up and has people with AR-15s hung over their shoulder come walking through the halls to intimidate us. But you can come anytime. But there are specific groups who will have a lobby day. Educators, people who want the AARP will come. So people come. There's a little notice, but you can come on your own. You can walk around all by yourself and knock on the door of your delegate or your senator and say, I'd really like to talk to you for 5 minutes. We are unless we're in a committee meeting, most of the time I'm able to sneak people in. I see Girl Scouts.
Yes.
I love it when the Girl Scouts come down.
That's great.
But the nurses come, and doctors come, and teachers come, and AARP, and name another group. And
every organization,
every
I bet, really
organization.
works
Yeah.
to that. You know, one of the top issues that has really been an important issue, for years now, maybe since the Affordable Care Act was passed, and obviously before, has been health care, right? And people have been terrified that their health care will be taken away from them. I mean, talk a little bit about, with Democrats in charge, what does health care look like?
It looks a lot better. It really does. We will take some time to look at the Affordable Care Act and see what needs to be fixed. We'll definitely do that. And I don't know what that's going to be yet, but that's another big issue. We sort of missed out on that one today.
Yes, we
did. But it's another big issue, and making sure there's some areas of Virginia I think that would just shock you at the level of poverty, and they have these RAM clinics. I've always admired the governor for going and spending days and days there, seeing children, because he is a physician.
Right.
And making sure that he sees every single child who's been waiting in line to be seen. Jennifer Boysko went down on one. I want to go. Maybe this year I'll be able to.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, and because Democrats were elected, so many people elected in 2016, we were really able to expand health care for so many Virginians.
It made a big difference.
I mean,
it really
that
did.
has to be such a huge accomplishment for so many delegates and state senators that worked so hard on that.
I think the fact that we won 2 years ago enough seats to get with, at 49, 48, I guess, it caused the Republicans to change the way that they dealt with us. And on some of those critical issues like health care, they sort of came to the table where they had not done that before.
That's fantastic.
There have been some good things. I started the Rare Disease Caucus. I don't know whether we talked about that.
No.
But the Rare Disease Caucus I started because we have a daughter who has cystic fibrosis. And so I really understand how hard it is and how expensive it is to deal with a disease like that.
Right.
And so this is something I've focused on as well down in my time in the House of Delegates.
That's incredible. Well, thank you for being with us this evening. Thank you for having an open conversation about so many important issues that we're going to see a real change on
It's going to be fun.
This January.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
Thank you for joining us. Good night.
Good night.